Blueface. Before the jail sentence, Blueface was already something of a phenomenon, but fame doesn't erase the past, and the streets always have a way of catching up. In October 2022, Blueface was caught up in a shooting outside a Las Vegas strip club. He eventually pled guilty to battery and discharging a firearm, which landed him on probation. At first, it seemed like he dodged a major bullet, but probation is like walking a tightrope, and Blueface had other cases trailing behind him. A 2021 incident involving the assault of a security guard at a Los Angeles lounge came back to haunt him. By August 2024, a judge had had enough. His probation was revoked. The sentence was 4 years in state prison. His manager, Whack 100, later broke down the math. With time already served, over 440 days, the real stretch was closer to 3 years. And with good behavior, he could be out in less than a year, 9 or 10 months maybe.
Blueface once again behind bars after he was arrested today while walking into the Las Vegas courthouse.
Still, that was all it took for a wild transformation to begin. The Blueface who walked into prison was a slim, lanky rapper. The Blueface people started seeing in leaked photos from behind the walls was practically unrecognizable. He looked like he had spent his whole life locked up, like a man molded by iron bars in yard time. His body had ballooned, he packed on muscle and looked almost 50 pounds heavier. His face looked like someone had been practicing tattooing on him. The ink had tripled, making him look like a different person entirely. Fans were shocked. The internet lit up with speculation. Some swore the weight gain had to be steroids. Others started cracking jokes, saying maybe Blueface had a little prison boothang looking out for him on the inside. And of course, the trolls had a field day. Comments poured in, from Blueface to Doodleface. He was not even in jail that long, and he put all that stuff on his face. He looked crazy. Gang members gotta be the most insecure, most attention-starved people on the planet. But not everybody was buying into the steroid theories. And the most vocal defender was his mother, Carlissa Saffold. In a video she posted online, Carlissa shut it all down. "I ain't never seen nobody on steroids put on that kind of weight and be that kind of zoned in," she said. "I ain't never seen him this mentally strong or this physically strong in his entire life. So whatever them shits is, honey, he might need to keep doing them." She doubled down even harder. "No, how the hell he gonna get some steroids? He barely getting some goddamn food in there."
It's Blue on steroids. No, you can't. How the hell he gonna get some steroids? He barely getting some goddamn food in there. He barely getting some food.
According to her, prison hadn't broken him at all. If anything, it sharpened him. She claimed her son wasn't depressed, wasn't losing himself. Instead, he was looking forward to freedom, motivated by a new sense of purpose, and, as she revealed, a new woman. Carlissa said Blueface had a new love interest named Angela, a woman who had been supporting him while he did his time.
I think if he was gonna be depressed, that would have been much early on. I think he's very excited to get out and make his moves. He has a new love interest. She's very supportive.
But not everyone agrees with Carlissa's rosy outlook. A lot of fans and critics look at the dramatic changes and argue there's no way his mental health hasn't taken a hit. Blueface is currently serving at Lancaster State Prison, a level 3 medium to high security facility in California. Before that, he passed through North Kern State Prison, a reception center where inmates are processed and profiled before placement. But Lancaster is a whole different world. The yard is packed with inmates who pose moderate to high risks. It's a place where gang politics are heavy, and affiliations with groups like the Aryan Brotherhood or Mexican Mafia are part of the daily reality. In a recent interview from behind the walls, Blueface said the prison is filled with a lot of misery. But when he steps outside onto the yard, he feels a little free, if only for those fleeting moments. Now, with his release date approaching, the focus is already shifting back to the outside world. Blueface has plans. He's talking about a welcome home celebration set for November 29th, 2025. Tupac. Before prison, Tupac was a poet, actor, activist, and one of the most electric artists of his generation. He was starring in films, dropping albums, and balancing between being a voice for the voiceless and a young man caught up in the chaos around him.
I'm talking about doing it, you know what I'm saying? It's happened to me. The police beat me up in the middle of the street for no reason, just simply because I cursed at them. Because they were harassing me and I cursed at them. Now they beat me up. And a lot of this music, it's only talking about the oppressed rising up against the oppressor. That's what my music's about. The oppressed rising up against the oppressor.
But in 1995, things flipped. He was convicted of SA and sentenced to 1.5 to 4.5 years in prison. Suddenly, the man who had been a superstar on stage and screen was now just another inmate in one of New York's most notorious maximum security prisons.
Tupac Shakur has been sentenced to a maximum of 4.5 years in prison for abusing a fan. A state judge in New York condemned the 23-year-old rapper for his, quote, arrogant abuse of the victim.
Clinton wasn't just any prison. This place was built for killers, gang leaders, mob bosses like Sammy the Bull Gravano, men who were used to violence, used to power. Dropping Tupac into that mix was like throwing gasoline on fire. He was high profile, young, and already carrying enemies both inside and outside the walls. Inside, Tupac was thrown into isolation, stuck in his cell for 23 hours a day. That type of confinement can crush a person's mind. But Tupac tried to flip it into something else. He called it his cultivation. He filled the hours by reading books that spoke to survival, strategy, and spirit. He studied Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince, learning about power, fear, and manipulation, while also turning to the soulful wisdom of writers like Maya Angelou. But reading didn't erase the reality. His cellmate, Donald Richardson, a high-ranking Blood, later spoke about what it was really like for Tupac behind bars. According to him, the prison was brutal. He remembered Tupac being denied recreation for weeks until Pac finally snapped, screaming through the cell, "I want to get out this cage. Y'all got me locked up in this damn cage like I'm some damn animal." And then there was the weird side of being a celebrity inmate. Richardson said that one CO, wanting a picture for his daughter, literally smuggled a camera into the prison just to snap flicks with Tupac. In return, the officer gave Pac small favors, like letting him out of his cell. It was a twisted barter system, a reminder that even in prison, fame was a currency.
The way that a camera was placed into the facility was by a correctional officer bringing it in, which was very, very not a part of their job description.
Still, all that isolation and stress began to change Tupac mentally. He married his longtime girlfriend, Keisha Morris, but instead of stability, prison bred paranoia. He came up with a new mantra: "I have no friends." He became convinced that the men who shot him 5 times in the New York recording studio lobby back in 1994 were connected to the same people accusing him. To make things worse, COS allegedly harassed him with racial slurs. The Bloods even tried to recruit him, but Tupac refused. He wanted to keep his independence, even in an environment where neutrality was almost impossible. Life in Clinton was survival of the fittest. The prison was a boiling pot of gangs, racial tension, and constant violence. And Tupac was a walking target. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone had something to gain from either protecting him, exploiting him, or breaking him down. Then came October 1995. After 8 long months, Pac's life changed with a single deal. Suge Knight, the infamous CEO of Death Row Records, swooped in and paid his $1.4 million bail. The price for that was Tupac had to sign a 3-album deal with Death Row. The Tupac that came out wasn't the wide-eyed, socially conscious young artist anymore. Prison had turned him vengeful, aggressive, and paranoid. The man who once poured his soul into Dear Mama, a track that hit #1 on the charts while he was still locked up, was now calling himself Machiavelli. Ready for war, his music became sharper, angrier, aimed directly at his enemies. In interviews, he spoke openly about death, saying his only fear was coming back reincarnated. It was as if he knew his time was running out and he was racing against it. And he was right. The transformation that began in that cold, solitary cell in upstate New York would only last a short while. Less than a year later, after his release, Tupac Shakur was gunned down in Las Vegas. Bobby Shmurda, summer 2014, was the moment Bobby Shmurda lit the internet on fire. Out of nowhere, this kid from Brooklyn drops hot and the streets couldn't get enough. For a second, it felt like Bobby had cracked the code, but just as fast as it all came crashing down. In December 2014, literally days after his Kimmel performance, Bobby was caught in a major sweep by the NYPD. It went down outside a recording studio in Manhattan. Police said they had been building the case for years against Bobby and his GS9 crew. That night, they found 2 guns and a little crack in the car Bobby was in, and the charges stacked up fast: conspiracy to commit murder, weapons possession, drug charges. And it wasn't just Bobby. 15 other guys went down too.
Bobby, what do you have to say to your fans? Bobby, anything?
Then Commissioner Bill Bratton even held a press conference, flat out dismissing Bobby and his crew. He called them mindless thugs and scolded the public for celebrating their music and their dance. When it came time for trial, Bobby ended up pleading guilty to conspiracy and weapons charges. He later said he felt pressured, that he tried to take it back, but the court wouldn't let him. That was it. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. From that moment, Bobby's life turned into a fight for survival inside New York's most notorious facilities. First stop was Rikers Island. Rikers isn't just a jail. It's practically a city of violence. Guards, gangs, politics. It's chaos 24/7. Bobby and Rowdy Rebel, his GS9 brother, got a taste of it immediately. At intake, they had to sleep on the floor for 2 days, packed in with other inmates. Bobby later described it as inhumane treatment, and that was only the beginning.
At first, me and Rowdy, we had stuck it up. We was in intake before they take you up. They had us sleeping in there for like 2 days.
Fights broke out constantly. Bobby himself ended up in a brawl with members of the Bloods, and that got him tossed into solitary confinement. At other times, he worked menial jobs inside the commissary, earning 10 to 25 cents an hour, just enough to maybe buy soap or snacks. But prison wasn't just about the daily grind. It was about survival. At Rikers, gangs like the Trinitarios and Bloods basically ran the yards. Power was about who you knew and how you carried yourself. From there, Bobby was moved to Clinton Correctional Facility, the same maximum security prison. Clinton wasn't for small-timers either. It was where New York sent its most hardened criminals. For Bobby, it was another world of violence, tension, and paranoia. After more than 6 years locked down, February 2021 finally came. Bobby was released. His return was big news, and rap fans celebrated like a hero had come home. Fellow rapper Quavo even picked him up in a private jet, making his release feel like a victory lap. But soon after, it became clear the Bobby that came out wasn't the same Bobby who went in. Fans noticed right away. His new music leaned more toward dance-oriented sounds, which was a sharp left turn from the gritty street anthems that had made him a star in the first place. But even more than the music, it was his energy, his walk, his mannerisms that people couldn't stop talking about. Some voices in hip-hop were blunt. Charleston White and Wack 100 openly said Bobby was moving different, pointing to mannerisms they described as feminine.
I've been Shmurda running around shaking his ass. He got an arch in his back that he can't get rid of. Say the nigga got some feminine appeal now.
Social media ate it up with speculation running wild. People questioned everything, and the chatter hasn't stopped since. Meek Mill. Meek Mill's battle with the system started way back in 2008. That year, he caught a gun and drug case in. He was barely in his 20s, still figuring life out, but that case came with a punishment that stuck to him for over a decade: probation. Now, probation might sound like a second chance, but for Meek, it was more like a trap. He was basically living with a rope tied around his neck for 10 years straight. He can't travel without permission. He can't slip up, not even a little. Every late check-in, every minor misstep, and he's standing back in front of a judge, staring at the possibility of prison. That was Meek's reality for years. The tipping point came in 2017. For doing wheelies on a dirt bike in New York and being caught up in a fight that didn't even stick, Judge Janice Brinkley hit him with a 2 to 4 year sentence. Not for a new violent crime, just for violating his probation on technicalities.
Philly rapper Meek Mill has just been sentenced to 2 to 4 years in state prison after a judge today found him guilty of violating his probation. This is video of the 30-year-old rapper whose real name is Robert Williams.
The punishment was so over the top, it felt personal. And to a lot of people, it looked like the system using Meek as an example. Overnight, the outrage exploded. Social media lit up with the hashtag #FreeMeek. And suddenly, his case was about how unfair the probation system is for millions of people across America. Meek was shipped off to the State Correctional Institution in Chester, Pennsylvania. And for him, the experience was nothing short of hell. He later called it a nightmare. He was locked in solitary for 23 hours a day, only an hour to stretch or shower. He described trying to sleep on cold concrete, eating junk food just to get by, and constantly hearing doors slam and men yell down the tier. His words, mental torture. And this wasn't maximum security, but Chester was still rough. Medium security or not, the yard was dominated by gangs, mostly East Coast sets with reputations for violence. Fights, stabbings, power struggles, they were part of everyday life. For someone like Meek, who was sitting there because of a probation violation, it was like being dropped into a battlefield you didn't sign up for. After about 5 months though, everything changed. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court ordered his immediate release on bail. One moment he's in a cell, the next he's being picked up by helicopter and flown straight to the Philadelphia 76ers playoff game. The entire arena erupted as he walked out and rang the ceremonial bell at center court.
He woke up Tuesday morning an inmate inside the state prison in Chester. By nightfall, he was ringing the ceremonial bell at Game 5 of the Sixers Heat playoff series inside an electric Wells Fargo Center.
That moment lit a fire in him. Meek wasn't just a rapper who survived prison anymore, he was now the face of probation reform. His case had highlighted just how broken the system was, and instead of letting it fade, he doubled down. In 2018, alongside Jay-Z, Michael Rubin, and other powerful allies, he launched the Reform Alliance, a nonprofit dedicated to fixing probation and parole laws across the US, and the work actually made a difference. Reform Alliance has helped pass 22 laws in 12 states, directly changing the lives of people caught in the system. The biggest full-circle moment came in December 2023, when Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro signed sweeping probation reform into law, the very kind of legislation Meek had been fighting for. Meek was there at the signing, emotional in a way that shocked even him. He tweeted later, "I don't know how I cried on the news. I ain't even cry in my cell. I needed that." T.I. By the mid-2000s, T.I. had already claimed the throne as the self-proclaimed King of the South. And not too many people argued with him. But on October 13th, 2007, just hours before he was supposed to step on stage at the BET Hip Hop Awards, his entire kingdom got flipped upside down. Federal agents swarmed him in a shopping center parking lot, catching him in the act of trying to buy unregistered machine guns and silencers from undercover officers.
I heard his name too, and I didn't get a chance to find out though.
Oh, okay, because I know he's supposed to perform tonight as well.
Yeah, that's sad though.
Now T.I. was already a convicted felon, so this wasn't just a rapper with a gun case. This was serious federal time hanging over his head. Eventually, he struck a plea deal and was sentenced to 1 year and a day in prison. And while that might sound light considering what he was caught with, it came with its own shadow. Whispers started spreading. How did he get off so easy? People started hinting at cooperation, and that rumor has clung to him ever since.
So you were saying T.I. was a rat?
Well, yeah. Man, everybody know. Everybody know, homie.
Before he went in though, Tip tried to keep things simple. In an interview with MTV News, he said he only had one plan: kick it with his family. "I work so much," he admitted, "so I'd just like the time to kick it with them." He served that sentence, but his freedom didn't last long. In September 2010, he got popped again in Los Angeles, this time on drug charges. That was an automatic violation of probation. No way around it. The judge wasn't interested in excuses. He sent T.I. right back to prison for another 11 months. But this second stint hit him differently. Behind those walls, Tip started seeing the bigger picture. Prison, he later explained, is nothing more than a plantation for cheap, if not free labor. What really hit him, though, was how overwhelmingly black the prison population was. It shook him to his core, a blow to his psyche, and out of that, something shifted. The fiery, cocky king of the South came out calmer, more patient, and a lot more reflective. Even when it came to leaving prison, nothing was smooth. He walked out of the Federal Correctional Institution in Forest City, Arkansas, a low to medium security prison where he did most of his time, and headed for a halfway house in Atlanta. But the way he traveled rubbed the feds the wrong way. Instead of keeping it low-key, Tip rode in a luxury tour bus for the 375-mile trip. Within 24 hours of showing up, federal authorities dragged him right back, locking him in the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Still, those prison walls sparked something in him. Once he got out, Tip redirected his energy. In 2017, he kicked off his Buy Back the Block movement, dropping millions into the same neighborhoods he grew up in, Bankhead and Center Hill. He was creating affordable housing, putting money into black-owned businesses, and breathing life back into his old community. One of his biggest moves was linking up with Killer Mike to buy the historic Bankhead seafood restaurant. He remembered it as a spot where families could get a full meal for $5. He wasn't about to watch it get bulldozed for another Starbucks. "I couldn't let them tear it down," he said. So he bought it. Tip also stepped deeper into politics and activism, serving on Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom's transition team in Atlanta, supporting Black Lives Matter, and speaking out whenever he saw injustice. By then, his transformation was complete. He was still the king, but now he was building something bigger than a rap legacy. In his own words, "If everything I've learned doesn't get passed on to the next generation, then it just dies with me. That's not a win." Lil Wayne. From 2004 to 2010, Lil Wayne wasn't just a superstar, he was a whole movement. But on March 8, 2010, that unstoppable run came to a screeching halt. Wayne turned himself in to serve a 1-year sentence at Rikers Island for a 2007 gun charge. He ended up doing 242 days, and those months behind bars left scars that went deeper than anybody expected.
Let him get out. Let him get out, guys. Just let him get out. Back up. Back up.
Prison life was a culture shock for him. In his memoir, Gone Till November, Wayne laid it all bare. He was assigned one of the toughest jobs inside, working as a suicide prevention aide. He described it as brutal, and even though he was supposed to be the one preventing suicides, Wayne admitted he thought about taking his own life too. The environment was crushing. He wrote about how being there was like watching spirits get broken in this hellhole, and just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, they did. His last month was spent in solitary confinement, locked in a cell for 23 hours a day. His offense was getting caught with a charger for an MP3 player. That was enough to strip him of what little freedom he had inside. Now, Rikers Island isn't just another jail. It's basically a penal colony, a place with its own twisted ecosystem, sitting on an island in the East River. It's infamous for its filthy conditions, overcrowding, and the constant presence of violence. Gangs like the Bloods and the Trinitarios run the show, and if you're not with it, you're vulnerable. This was the place Wayne had to navigate. When he finally walked free, the whole hip-hop world was ready for his comeback. Fans were expecting that same mixtape monster Wayne to come out swinging, but the man who returned wasn't the same. Something was different. Critics and fans noticed it right away. His fire, his momentum, that creative energy he once had in endless supply. It felt dulled. Prison hadn't just slowed him down, it broke a piece of him.
It's just crazy to be with you a year later and overcoming that situation, man.
Yeah, man.
So I'm glad you're in good health.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Definitely.
Even his appearance told a story. For years, Wayne's teeth were hidden behind that infamous $150,000 diamond-encrusted grill, but those diamonds had wrecked his real teeth underneath. Right before his sentence, he went through an 8-hour marathon dental surgery, 8 root canals in one go. After prison, he came back with a whole new set of porcelain veneers, a perfect Hollywood smile that looked polished but felt almost symbolic. Wayne had gone from natural to iced out to completely artificial. Of course, Wayne still had flashes of greatness. On features, he could still snap, reminding everyone of who he once was. But that unstoppable, relentless force that had dominated hip-hop before prison never fully came back. He summed it up best himself in his memoir with a simple, haunting line: "I don't wish jail on anybody." And coming from Wayne, a man who had everything the world could offer, that said it all. Kodak Black. For Kodak Black, trouble with the law wasn't just a detour, it was the road itself. From the very start of his career, it seemed like his rap sheet was running side by side with his Billboard hits. Every time he dropped a record that had the clubs or the streets buzzing, there was another mugshot floating online. But the longest stretch of his life behind bars, a 46-month federal sentence, would change him in a way no other lockup had before. Kodak wasn't new to the system. By the time he was 18, he'd already faced charges ranging from robbery to assault, even kidnapping, along with the usual drug and gun cases. But in 2019, things got heavy. He got caught falsifying information on federal forms so he could buy firearms. That was the charge that finally stuck.
A judge sentenced South Florida rapper Kodak Black to 4 years in prison on federal weapons charges. He pled guilty in August to 2 counts of knowingly making a false and fictitious statement in order to unlawfully acquire firearms.
Kodak's first stop was USP Big Sandy, a high-security federal prison in Kentucky. It's one of those prisons with a reputation so rough that even hardened inmates dread getting sent there. Racial tensions run high, fights pop off constantly, and guards don't exactly make life easier. Kodak himself accused the staff of abusing him, even filing a lawsuit against the Federal Bureau of Prisons over it. For him, it wasn't just punishment, it was survival. Eventually, he got transferred to USP Thompson in Illinois. And it was in Thompson that something shifted inside him. Away from the spotlight, away from the streets, Kodak started leaning into something deeper. He linked up with a prison priest, began studying scripture, and slowly he found himself drawn to the Hebrew Israelite faith. He went so far as to legally change his name from Duson Octave to Bilkahan Capri. And the changes weren't only spiritual. Physically, Kodak started to look different too. He slimmed down noticeably, grew out his hair, and tatted himself even more, including new ink on his forehead that gave him a look impossible to miss. On January 19th, 2021, literally Trump's last day in office, Kodak caught a lifeline. His sentence was commuted by the outgoing president. Suddenly, the man who was supposed to serve years more walked free.
The biggest flex to get pardoned by the president. Like, how did that come about? Like, did you guys have a prior relationship? Like, that's insane to me.
You know, they were making sure like I was getting up out of there safe.
But he didn't walk out the same. He came out slimmer, with more tattoos, and speaking with a sense of spiritual clarity that fans hadn't heard before. He publicly thanked Trump and vowed to focus more on giving back. He mentioned scholarships, supporting struggling families, even stepping up for families of fallen law enforcement officers. But here's the thing with Kodak. Change is complicated. That prison stint definitely woke something up in him, but the cycle hasn't fully been broken. He's still had run-ins since, arrests for trespassing, probation violations, and the now infamous incident where he was found, passed out in his Bentley, with what turned out to be prescription oxycodone. Even though it was technically prescribed, it was enough to land him in more legal hot water. So, yes, prison gave Kodak a spiritual awakening. It gave him faith, clarity, even a new name. But what it hasn't given him yet is total freedom from the grip of the criminal justice system. Gucci Mane. Before 2014, Gucci Mane was living wild. He was already a trap pioneer, a man who helped define Atlanta's sound and influence an entire generation of rappers. But success didn't shield him from his demons. By his own admission, he was drowning in lean, blowing through weed like oxygen, and spiraling out of control. He said at one point, he was drinking pints of syrup every week and smoking pounds of weed. His body told the story. He had ballooned to almost 290 pounds, his face swollen, his energy erratic.
I was drinking pints of lean a week and smoking pounds of weed and just doing all kind of drugs and just the whole way I was just handling myself before I went to jail was just so negative.
And his behavior matched his addictions. He was unpredictable, reckless, and constantly in trouble with the law. Arrest after arrest piled up until he eventually pled guilty to possession of a firearm as a convicted felon. That conviction sent him to federal prison. But what could have been just another dark chapter ended up being the turning point of his entire life. That's where the legend of the new Gucci really begins. Inside, Gucci made a choice. For years, he'd been living on autopilot, letting drugs run his life. But in prison, without the chaos of fame and without the substances to lean on, he faced himself for the first time in years. "I was out of control," he later admitted to Malcolm Gladwell. The day he was arrested and forced to quit cold turkey was the day it started to click. He needed to take care of himself, or he was going to self-destruct.
So I guess like the day that I got arrested and stopped doing drugs, eventually it started dawning on me, hey, listen, you gotta take better care of yourself, or you're gonna be back in the same situation. So that was like really the turning point.
So he got sober. No more lean, no more drugs. He swapped late-night binges for a disciplined routine, healthy eating, and daily workouts. 6 days a week he was hitting exercise, sweating out years of addiction. He traded fried foods and junk for salmon, zucchini, squash, and gallons of water, over 120 ounces a day. Slowly but surely, his body transformed. He dropped more than 100 pounds. But it wasn't just physical. Gucci started feeding his mind too. He read constantly, stayed to himself, and let go of Gucci Mane the rapper for a while. In there, he was Radrick Davis, and he carried himself that way, humble, focused, determined. He served his time at FC Terre Haute, a medium security prison in Indiana. Like any prison, it had its dangers. But compared to the chaos of his outside life, it gave him something he badly needed: structure. It gave him space to reset. When he finally walked out in May 2016, the transformation was so shocking that the internet couldn't even believe it. Conspiracy theories popped up left and right. People swore Gucci had been cloned because the man who came out looked like a completely different person. Slim, toned, sharp, clear-headed. He didn't just look new, he was new. And since that day, his life has been one of the greatest redemption stories hip-hop has ever seen. He stayed sober, stayed fit, and stayed consistent. He married Keishia Kawir, the love of his life, and built a stable family. Musically, he came back stronger than ever, dropping hit after hit and staying more relevant than most of his peers from the 2000s. Gucci himself doesn't shy away from giving credit where it's due. He said flat out, prison saved his life. It stripped away the noise, the addictions, and the distractions, and forced him to build from the ground up. "One thing I need to do is be totally sober," he said. "I need to have complete clarity. I need to have razor-sharp focus." And he found that clarity behind a prison wall. Pooh Shiesty. In 2020, Pooh Shiesty looked unstoppable. Fresh off signing with Gucci Mane's 1017 Records, he was the face of a new Memphis wave. But just as quick as the spotlight came, the walls started closing in. The turning point came in October 2020 in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida. Shiesty had pulled up in style, rolling in a green McLaren and a Maybach, meeting up in a parking lot to buy sneakers and weed. It should have been routine. Instead, it went left. Surveillance cameras caught the whole thing. Words got exchanged, shots rang out, and one man ended up hitting the buttocks.
Broad daylight bullets, 2 hit, over $500,000 in exotic cars. All of it on surveillance video, and it involves a recording artist, Pooh Shiesty. Except unlike this clip, what happened here was no music video.
As Shiesty peeled off in the McLaren, a Louis Vuitton bag stuffed with nearly $41,000 in cash fell out of the car. That bag was the smoking gun. Investigators traced the money back to Shiesty by matching the serial number on one of the recovered $100 bills to a bill Shiesty had flexed on Instagram just days before. Then, months later, the trouble only deepened. June 2021, King of Diamonds strip club in Miami. A gun, a security guard getting shot in the ankle, and Shiesty's name all over it. Now, he wasn't just a rising rap star, he was a target, with prosecutors circling. The charges stacked high: conspiracy, robbery, firearm counts, even one carrying a potential life sentence. With the odds against him, he made a calculated move. In 2022, Shiesty took a plea deal, copping to one federal firearms conspiracy charge. On April 20th, 2022, the judge handed down his sentence, 5 years and 3 months. But it's what happened after he went inside that flipped the story. The Pooh Shiesty the world knew, baby-faced, often masked, with his signature clean look, started to fade. In his place, something new appeared. Prison photos surfaced, and fans had to double take. He had grown a full beard, let his hair out, slipped on gold-framed glasses, and struck thoughtful, almost meditative poses. It wasn't just the look. The messages started shifting too. His Instagram stories weren't about flashy cars or iced-out watches anymore. They were philosophical, almost cryptic. The police don't stop watching just cause you in jail and you can go to jail inside of jail, he wrote. Just let that sink in, y'all small ass unconscious head. Some fans speculated he was on a spiritual path. They noticed small details, like how the H in his Choppa forearm tattoo had been removed, as if he was shedding part of his old identity. Others saw the beard and glasses as armor, a survival mask for the federal system, because this isn't a camp or a halfway house. Shiesty is serving his time at USP Canaan, a high-security federal penitentiary in Pennsylvania. This is a place built for men with violent histories, where gang politics dictate daily life and violence can break out over the smallest disrespect. It's a crucible, and it's inside that crucible that the version of Shiesty fans now see has been forged. His release date is projected for April 2026, though good time and credits could possibly shave it down. In the meantime, he's kept his voice alive. Deluxe editions of his projects have dropped, a reminder that the music hasn't gone anywhere. K-Flock. K-Flock was supposed to be the next big name out of New York drill, but one night in Harlem changed everything. On December 16, 2021, right outside a barbershop on Amsterdam Avenue, things went left. What started as words being exchanged ended with gunfire. When the smoke cleared, 24-year-old Oscar Hernandez was lying dead on the sidewalk. For Flock, just 18 at the time, the dream started to unravel. He turned himself in not long after, and at first it looked like a straight-up state case. But then the feds came knocking. By 2023, it had escalated into something way bigger, a full-blown RICO indictment. Prosecutors painted him not just as a rapper, but as a member of a violent criminal enterprise tied to Sevside, or DOA. Suddenly, K-Flock wasn't just facing a murder charge. He was staring down the possibility of mandatory life if the jury hit him with murder in aid of racketeering. While the case was dragging on, he was stuck inside, and that's where the first signs of transformation showed up. In 2024, jailhouse photos started floating around online. Fans knew him as the skinny kid with his hair pulled back from his face, but these new pictures showed a different version of him. Still lean, but trying to bulk up, flexing in the mirror, and showing off his progress. On March 22nd, 2024, a picture went viral. K-Flock grinning and flexing his arms for the camera. In a FaceTime clip that made the rounds, he even joked around with people about how many views the video was getting. But the internet wasn't exactly kind. Some fans clowned him for being worried about live stream numbers from a cell. Others dragged him with the running joke that prison is the ultimate gym, except apparently for K-Flock. Comments piled in, "Bro in jail carrying about 64 or 600 viewers on live. Our youth is fried." Another one read, "He flexing and still little as when he came in." And someone else took it further, "Only ninja in prison ain't getting his weight up." But then 2025 rolled around and the narrative flipped. A new picture leaked, allegedly of K-Flock again, and this time he looked completely different. Fans were shocked. The skinny frame was gone. He looked heavier, bulkier, like he'd put on real size. The same people who were clowning him a year earlier were now marveling at the transformation. And just as that was happening, the biggest twist in his legal battle hit. In March 2025, his trial ended with a jaw-dropper. The jury acquitted him on the murder count. He beat the top charge, the one that could have buried him forever. For the first time in years, there was a crack of light, but the jury still found him guilty on racketeering conspiracy, attempted murder, and assault with a dangerous weapon. Still, K-Flock took the partial victory and ran with it. On Instagram, an audio clip surfaced of him celebrating, "I beat the top count. I made the judge cry. Alhamdulillah." Right now, he's in limbo. Sentencing is set for October 16th, 2025. He's no longer stuck at Rikers Island, but his new digs aren't much better. After the feds picked up the case, he was transferred into federal custody, likely MDC Brooklyn. And if you know MDC, you know it's its own kind of nightmare. 03 Greedo. Before prison ever came into the picture, 03 Greedo was already being talked about like a legend in the making. In the LA underground, they called him a ghetto treasure, a voice that didn't sound like anybody else. But all of that momentum screeched to a halt one night in 2016 in the middle of nowhere, the Texas Panhandle. It started as a routine traffic stop. Cops said they smelled weed, and what they found flipped his entire life upside down. 4 pounds of meth and 2 stolen pistols in the trunk. In Texas, that wasn't just a case, it was a death sentence. On paper, he was facing up to 300 years. Greedo had to make a choice. He took a plea deal, 20 years in a Texas state prison. For most people, that's the end of the story. But Greedo didn't crumble. He treated that ticking clock like motivation. In his final months of freedom, he went on a recording rampage that's still talked about. He locked himself in the studio and cut music like a man possessed. 600 songs, maybe even 3,000. Some nights, he'd knock out 15 tracks before the sun came up. His mission was simple: build a vault so deep that his voice could live on even while he was gone. And it worked. When he went in, his career exploded. Mixtapes, albums, features, all dropping like he never left. From behind bars, he was buying jewelry, grabbing a $200,000 bulletproof Aston Martin, and running up millions. "I was going platinum in prison," he laughed in an interview. For Greedo, the walls didn't stop the music. If anything, they amplified it. But life inside wasn't easy. Texas prisons are notorious for being harsh, outdated, and openly racist. Greedo painted the picture himself: racial segregation so deep that inmates couldn't even sit and eat with each other. Guards he described as hateful and drunk on power, and prison farms where inmates still picked cotton like it was the 1800s. He started out in Potter County Jail in Amarillo before being shipped deeper into the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, including the Caulfield Unit, one of the largest and toughest prisons in the state. That environment hardens you, or it breaks you. For Greedo, it stripped him down to nothing but art. By the time he walked out in January 2023 after serving nearly 5 years, he didn't even care about the regular things people obsess over. He went straight back to recording, leaving his halfway house at night to hit the studio. His words afterward were blunt: "I don't care about regular life. I don't care who gets married. I don't care who dies. I only believe in art." YNW Melly. Back in 2018, Melly was skyrocketing. His breakout hit Murder on My Mind was blowing up, and then he landed a dream collaboration with Kanye West on Mixed Personalities. He was young, charismatic, and poised to be Florida's next superstar. But in February 2019, everything froze. He was arrested and charged with the murders of his 2 closest friends and fellow YNW crew members, Satchazer and Juvie. According to prosecutors, Melly and YNW Bortland set their friends up, shot them inside a Jeep, then staged the scene to look like a drive-by. The evidence they leaned on was circumstantial but dramatic. Surveillance footage of all 4 getting into the car together, cell phone records showing the Jeep took a strange detour to a remote area after the shots, and ballistics that suggested the fatal bullets came from the exact seat where Melly was sitting. But the case had holes big enough to drive through. No murder weapon was ever recovered. Melly's DNA wasn't on crucial items. The whole thing was so flimsy that at one point the prosecution started using his lyrics against him, pointing to Murder on My Mind as proof of his guilt. It wasn't enough. In July 2023, after months of testimony, his first trial ended with a hung jury, a mistrial. While the case dragged on, Melly's real punishment was the waiting. He's been behind bars since 2019, stuck in county facilities like Broward County Jail, and later the Paul Rain Detention Facility in Pompano Beach. These aren't prisons, they're jails. And by all accounts, the conditions there were brutal. His lawyers claim he's been locked in solitary for years, denied visits with his family, and hasn't been allowed to make a single phone call since 2020. They say it's deliberate psychological warfare designed to break him down. And it shows. His appearance has changed dramatically. The signature dreads that fans knew him for are gone, chopped off, replaced with a wild, unkempt afro. When he shuffled into court like that, it was jarring. For Melly, there hasn't been an after yet. He's still stuck in the middle. His retrial has been pushed back to January 2027. By then, he'll have sat in jail for almost 8 years without a verdict.